Hey VC, it's Danny. Um, Back after a little while. Sorry for the absence there. Life got a little crazy. Um, but while I was not making videos, I passed 100 subscribers, which is unbelievable, and really, really, really deeply appreciated. I can't say thank you enough to everybody who's subscribed, liked, commented, watched 30 seconds of a video and decided it wasn't for them. Just that anybody would be interested, or that they would find any value in what I'm doing here is beyond flattering. And I really, really appreciate it. And I've really enjoyed being a part of this community. And yeah, I just, I can't thank you guys enough. Um, so I'm doing 100 subs contest. And part of the reason that this video took so long is because it took me a while to narrow down my ideas and make sure that I liked what I was doing. So here's the contest. We're going to you'll have about a month, let's say till St. Patty's Day, a little more than a month. Um, that'll be the last day for entry, and that's March 17th. And you show me a stack of liner notes. Um, I love the liner notes on albums. I think it's not often talked about. It's maybe not as sexy as the cover or the label, but I was thinking about it, and just so much of the discourse, which is what the VC is all about, uh, is kind of born in the liner notes. There are certain things that are written in the liner notes of one album that will be repeated in forever and ever ad nauseum. Um, Other times you get an insight from the artist that you wouldn't have otherwise come across. Um, you get context historically. There's so much that the liner notes can offer, and so much that they contribute to the way that we talk about music, and like I said, this conversation that we're keeping up in the VC. So I thought it would be a cool idea. So I'll stop rambling and I'll show you mine. And yeah, it's a pretty small stack, but I just highlighted some of my favorite liner notes, basically. So first up is Them, featuring Van Morrison. This is a compilation on Parrot. And the liner notes here are copious, and they're by Lester Bangs, the famous rock critic. And apologies, I'm going to read to you, not the whole thing, uh, but spawn of the Dublin pubs, them creatures in a white-named van. No one would question that Van Morrison is one of the finest songwriters and singers of our time, as well as being a rock and roller without peer. He has cut a swath across America which proves unmistakably that he can do it all, write some of the tenderest odes of the day, and still get down and churn out the boogie, should he be so inclined. Liking him is not merely a matter of belonging to a specialized following, as with a David Bowie or a Neil Young. His music is so universal and so diverse as to be joyously inescapable. We have grown up to Van Morrison, gone through makeouts and periods of adolescent darkness, found rock poetry sans pretense in his lyrics, turned up our radios a little louder as he counseled in Caravan. Every time he came on, heard in his music hit singles and sheer art, though never art rock, and gorgeous combinations of the two. Um, it's not even the best bit, but I think it's a great intro to what's so wonderful about these liner notes. Lester Bangs just, in my opinion, shows genuine passion and appreciation for Van Morrison, and as a famous and experienced rock critic, he's not afraid to weave a few words of his own, and it's a great read. So, of course, the music on here is fantastic as well. If you're not familiar with the music of them, this is actually a really great way to get some of it in your hands. But yeah, there's the first one there. Now, next up is A Wonder Working Stone by Alistair Roberts and Friends.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
It's alright, Alexa. I don't know if you heard that. I just triggered Alexa. This is my favorite Alistair Roberts record. Not my absolute favorite, but one of my favorites. 2013. It's a great record. And there's a few things about this that make it so wonderful to me, in terms of liner notes. One is that, I don't know if I can get it to focus. He includes the guitar tuning on the label for each song. He's got he uses a lot of open tunings. So the Merry Wake is E flat F D G A D. The Year of Burning is A A D G A C. It's really cool. It's the kind of attention to detail that I wouldn't say I expect from folk records, but that I continue to be excited to find in folk records. And of course, the gatefold is full of lyrics, but also copious liner notes. And there's one in particular, which of course I won't be able to find right now. Here it is. So the liner notes for The Year of Burning. This song, whose title translates in Scottish Gaelic as Bladna Gael, I can't speak Gaelic, sorry, concerns a particularly dark aspect of not too distant Scottish history, the Highland clearances. Part of the tune is based on that of the traditional Irish song Lough Erne Shore, as misremembered, which I love, from a 1976 LP by Andy Irvine and Paul Brady. A version of that song, recorded in 1999, can also be heard sung by former Comhaltas All-Ireland champion and stalwart of the Goyland Singers Club in Dublin, Jim McFarland, together with his son Seamus, on the CD Cascades of Song, featuring recordings from the Clare Festival of Traditional Singing made between 1991 and 1999. So, there's not only some context for the song that you'd be listening to on this album, but extra information about the song that he misremembered. And that was exciting to me for many reasons. That the Andy Irvine album was an important one to me. It was one that my dad had. It was one of the records that I grew up reading the liner notes. It was one of the places where, I developed a lot of my tastes. And so to have my records speaking to my dad's records was kind of unbelievable. I sent him a photo of those liner notes, and he got a kick out of it. And so this is Andy Irvine and Paul Brady. This is the record that Alistair is speaking about. Also an incredible record. I mean, this is... I can't think of many Irish folk albums which are better or more representative. If you were asking me where do I start with Irish traditional music, and this is where I would tell you to start. But since we're talking about liner notes, the liner notes here written by Frank Hart for Lough Erne Shore. The Ulster love songs, it seems to me, are becoming more and more an essential part of a singer's repertoire. Maybe it is because of the quality of the singers one hears from the north, such as Geordie Hanna, Joel Holmes, Len Graham, Paddy Tunney, Sarah Macomb, etc., or the poetic quality of the words and the beautiful airs of these songs. The song sung here by Paul is one which he heard from Paddy Tunney. Paddy's mother, Bridget Tunney, who died only last year, was one of our finest singers and had a vast store of this type of love song. So, as if I didn't already have that connection with my dad. My father is an Ulsterman. He's from the north. And the poetic quality of the words is something that I've always associated with the Irish. I mean, it helps growing up with an Irishman in the house, but yeah. I mean, so for me, just being able to read the liner notes in two records and be carried so far back in history, and to then also somehow feel so connected to my own history and my father's history. It's, this is why I love liner notes, because when you start filling in this context, the world shrinks, and the people on the other side of these records don't seem to be so far away, and at the same time, your vision of the world and of where this music comes from is enriched. I mean, I don't know, what are there, 8 to 10, 6 to 8 artists listed in just those two liner notes there? If these were the only two records you had, you could still, it would move you somewhere. You would have somewhere to look. You could, I mean, Alistair gave you clear instructions for which CD to track down. This is the stuff I love. So there's one of my favorite connections in liner notes. Not that that's like a common thing, but it's very exciting to me. And yeah, also, again, couldn't recommend both of those albums enough. So here's the next one here. Is Karen Dalton. It's so hard to tell who's going to love you the best. Excuse me. It's so hard to tell who's going to love you the best. And if any of you saw my top pickups of 2017 video, I made reference to the idea that it was a commonly held belief that In My Own Time was overproduced. And that comes from these liner notes. The widely held belief is that if Karen knew she was being recorded, this album, It's So Hard to Tell, would never have been made. It's been said that Karen disliked studios, true, and felt that her music was best when played informally and in living rooms, also true. Probably because of this, legend had it that producer Nicholas Vennet, having wanted to record Karen for some years, finally baited her into the studio by inviting her to just come hang out at a Fred Neil. I don't know what that means. Then, when all the players were chilling out, they started playing music casually with Karen's guard down. She sang Jelly Roll Morton tunes, Fred Neil songs, and several others, and every note was spectacular, her voice resonating like a cracked bell, a muted horn, and Vennet kept the tape rolling in secret behind her back, accomplishing what no other had been able to do successfully, capture Karen's rare, elusive talent on record. Not true at all. It goes on to say that that's merely the legend. And the funny thing to me is that I think I even paraphrased the widely held belief. I think I said the commonly held belief or something like that. And rereading these liner notes and the liner notes, which I'm not featuring here for In My Own Time, I realized that my ignorance had colored my understanding of what these liner notes were saying. And that this paragraph, the one I just read you, that was the one that really stuck in my head, and even though the liner notes go on to contradict that immediately following, it really stuck with me. And I still, I sold it all to you as, this is the commonly held belief. And it's just interesting. I thought it was just an illustration of what I think is fascinating about liner notes and how they influence our thinking about the music, the way we talk about the music. And I think, I don't want to belabor this because I think maybe I don't quite know how to make the point, but it's one of the things I love the most about liner notes is that you come to them when you're ignorant and it means one thing. You come to them years later to reread them after having really acquainted yourself with the material, the artist, and the meaning can completely change. Much like the music, I guess. But yeah, there you go. So there's Karen Dalton. It's so hard to tell who's going to love you the best. Which is obviously also a fantastic album. All of these are, the double note of being great records that I would highly recommend on top of having cool liner notes. This one's a bit of an oddity, actually, and a fun one, in my opinion. So, this is Lightnin Hopkins with Brownie McGhee, Sonny Terry, and Big Joe Williams. First meeting of the Blues Giants. This is a Japanese pressing. And this record is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you can track down a copy, I highly, highly recommend it. Even if you could just stream it, but if you could stream it through good speakers, it's such a beautiful recording. There's so much space in this record. More than maybe any other in my collection, this record puts me in the room with the artists. And I don't mean this to be in any way teasing. It tickles me a little bit. But because it is a Japanese record, every single word that is uttered in these improvised blues has been transcribed. And so you just get these I don't know, it's almost not even like lyrics. Okay, Lightnin, in parentheses. They ask Lightnin, why do you drink whiskey? Whiskey give you pretty nerves. They ask you why I drink whiskey. Whiskey give me a pretty nerves. I'll come to find out one morning, whiskey's the best drink in this world. Watch out, Mr. Hopkins, in parentheses. Whoa, W-O-H. You know why I drank whiskey. Tell me why, Brownie. Well, I drank to keep from worrying. Sometimes I do too, in parentheses. And I smile just to keep from crying. Lightnin', don't you know? I don't know. There's something to me that is just... it's not lost in translation. I think something is added in translation here. I think that to transcribe the lyrics to improvised blues would not occur to most people putting out a record, a blues record in America. At least not to my mind. And I think it's because of the cultural and language barrier that these exist. And there are some mistakes, but it's not like I enjoy these because I want to laugh at the misspelled words. It's just fascinating. I mean, to get such a detailed transcription, almost down to the grunts and groans. I don't know. It adds something. It's kind of fun to follow along and read this while I listen to the record. And beyond that, this is one I love this record, and it's a beautiful, beautiful copy in pristine condition, and I just wanted to show it off because this is my channel and I can do that. So anyway, Lightnin Hopkins, first meeting of the Blues Giants. All right, getting down to the end here. So, of course, jazz is well known for its wonderful liner notes, especially Blue Note recordings. And this is the first jazz record, beyond Someday My Prince Will Come, that really made a big impression on me. And this is a message from Blakey, Holliday for Skins, Volume 1. This is also a Japanese pressing, actually. Picked up on a whim at my local. Honestly, just because it was the package was so beautiful. And in my ignorance, I actually didn't know it was not an original. I thought it was, because I didn't know really anything about Blue Notes at the time. But there's this one section here where Blakey talks about rhythm. It says, "Rhythm," Blakey said. "We're very far behind in rhythm. We have to catch up. Over in Europe, they say to me, 'Art, you were playing 11 against 8 there.' I didn't know it, but I play the record, and they're right, I was. They have orgy and rhythm all figured out like it was a symphonic score. Here in America, we don't know about that. The young musicians are working so hard on harmony and melody that they leave rhythm behind. You ever notice how a band will play a tune that has a very complicated rhythm, but when it comes time for the solos, they go back into straight 4? Why? Because they can't play it. They aren't rhythmically advanced enough. Only 3 men could do it. They're our greatest musicians, and they're great because they're so advanced rhythmically. Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and Thelonious Monk." That's just really stuck with me. It's something I heavily associate with this album, but something that's colored my my thinking about jazz all the way through. And of course, it's biased. I mean, Blakey is a drummer, but this record is nothing if not rhythmically advanced. It's incredible, and I mean, basically the whole album is polyrhythms. But yeah, I don't know. It's just these liner notes I read as I was falling in love with this album. So it might just be that I have a strong personal connection to it, but it's those types of tidbits, that type of quote from the artist or an extra way to think about things that again, it's just what I love so much about liner notes. So just wanted to show that. I felt like I couldn't make a liner notes video and not include some jazz. And last up here, tried to save a bit of a grail for the end. This is Townes Van Zandt, Rain on a Conga Drum, live in Berlin. This is a German pressing. This was tough to find. This was on the want list for a while. And it's kind of like the late period Live at the Old Quarter. It's a great live recording by Townes, but he's in top form. You know, it's not him stopping the song halfway through or cracking up laughing and kind of ruining it all. This is a really great record. And the liner notes for this record, they if you would just read these, it's like a summary of all of the little quotes and stories and isms about Townes that you would collect through listening to his live shows, through listening to his career. I obviously won't be reading you the whole thing, but his father, an oilman, told a 10-year-old Townes that he'd buy him a guitar if the first song he agreed to learn was Fraulein, which he did. They lived in Fort Worth till he was 10, then moved to West Texas, then Montana, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, and back to Texas. Accompanying his father in the car, he heard music constantly as he went from oil field to oil field with the radio on. It was mostly the music of singers such as Hank Williams and Lefty Frizzell, until Elvis burst into his life. All of a sudden, Elvis hit, this is in quotes now, when I was 8 or 9, and that was a whole different ballgame. In the long run, Hank Williams and Lefty Frizzell probably inspired me more. They probably went in deeper to my consciousness. In the early 60s, he started listening to a lot of jazz and Lightnin Hopkins. Later came Bob Dylan and Phil Ochs. Dylan more than the rest. When I heard him, that was the direction I took. He played in a lot of rough spots, bars full of rowdy beer drinkers. and to arm himself, started writing funny talking blues. Then, one night, out of nowhere, he wrote his first non-comic song, Waiting Around to Die. It's an extreme song. You can't get much more serious than this existential tale of a gambler and a thief who gets addicted to codeine after getting out of jail. Soon his serious songs began to outnumber the funny ones, and he started writing some real love songs as intense as real love itself. He plugged into the pure, constant current of creativity, and at times the connection was so electric that it hurt. That's the best 2 paragraphs I can think of about Townes. Gives you where he comes from, gives you how he developed. And for me, it gave me some context. I had previously heard Townes tell the story of asking his father for a guitar, but didn't know his father was an oilman. I had heard the story that Waiting Around to Die was the first song he wrote, which he said before, but he didn't always say it was the first serious song I wrote. He would just say, that was the first song I wrote. Because, to have Waiting Around to Die be the first song you wrote it's a good way to build your own legend. And I think Townes is a fascinating character in that way. To come from being the son of a rich oilman and to spend so much of your career developing an image of being, kind of a dirty layabout, really. More or less how Townes conducted himself and sold himself, whether or not that was the truth. I think Townes' personality was as constructed as his songs, and as beautifully and perfectly constructed as his songs. So anyway, just another example of why I love liner notes here. So, and Townes Van Zandt ran on a conga drum. Highly recommended. His cover of Dead Flowers by the Rolling Stones is the version from this album is featured at the end credits of The Big Lebowski. So some of you may already know a track off of this one. So there you go. Those are my my liner notes picks. So yeah. So grab a stack of your favorite liner notes. Doesn't have to be a lot. Doesn't have to be in depth. You don't have to read them to us. You can do whatever you want. But just pick some liner notes that have added context to the music that you love, or that include some tidbit that you're excited by, or however, whatever. I in some ways I feel like liner notes are so underrepresented on the VC that really any bit of talking about liner notes would be exciting to me. But yeah, if you want to pick a jazz record and a blues record and a folk record and show that, whatever you want to do. And like I said, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, we'll call it. That'll be the end of the contest. Last day for entries. I'll pick a winner, and I'll do my best to put together a nice prize pack and get it sent out to you guys. So again, thank you so much for the support. I can't believe I'm at 100 followers. I think I'm a little over now. But thanks, VC. It's been a real pleasure. So talk to you soon. Bye.